Good afternoon, everybody. It is kind of late and I'm not exactly sleepy tonight, so I thought I would do a little half of a demo. I'm going to do part of it tonight and then I'm going to finish the rest of it up tomorrow because I'm getting ready to do one of Bob's easier paintings. And I picked this one because I've done it before and everybody that saw it absolutely loved it. It is not real hard. The first part of it is doing gesso, and what you can see here, what we have a black canvas, and I have not painted over this a second time. It's a double gessoed canvas, and what we're getting ready to do here is I'm going to take some white gesso, which is Bob Ross's gesso. Now I'll let you see. I'm going to be using all three of his gessos, the gray, the black, and the white. This is going to be, it's going to look a little odd at first, but if you will follow through and you'll tune back in tomorrow, you will see just how amazing this painting will turn out. The way that Bob did this was, it's going to, at the end of it, it's going to look like woods with a beautiful ray of sunshine coming through it. And the way that I'm going to be putting this white gesso up here, we're going to be using a paper towel, a plate with a little bit of white gesso on it. So I'm just going to dab into my gesso there just a little and try to get it all over my paper towel. And I probably don't have enough on there. And then we're going to find out where our light source is going to be, where our main light source is going to be coming from. And that is going to be, I think I'll come over just a little, not right in the middle, because he never does anything right in the middle, if you've ever noticed. I'm going to go just a little bit to the left of the canvas, and I'm going to start. My light source is going to be right there. So that's where I'm going to start putting in my white gesso. And each time I go back to my gesso and I dab some more on my paper towel, and it doesn't have to be any certain way, it's just blobbed up there. You want to start back in the middle and work your way out. And all of this looks like, well, she's just daubing a bunch of white paint on a canvas. How could that be anything? Starting back in the middle. When I get done with this, all of these little white gesso little blobs are actually going to look like trees. And this is one of the easiest, probably for me, one of the easiest gesso paintings I've ever done that is by Bob Ross. So we want to cover it really good. But again, I want to keep this lighter than the rest of my painting. I'm working my way out. And I got a little bit more down on this part right here because I'm going to carry my gray gesso down a little bit further. And that will make this a little bit darker right in here. And it'll all come together. I think I did this painting probably about a year and a half ago. And a lot of people really loved the painting before I put the oil painting on it, because the opaque colors that I'm going to be using changes the entire painting. Alright, I think I've got probably enough of that. Now I'm going to go pick up just a little bit of my gray gesso. Gray Gesso by Bob Ross. And you want to shake this stuff up really good. And I'll tell you a little story about the gessos. I was using the Hobby Lobby gesso, an off-brand. And don't get me wrong, you know, if that's what you want to do, that's totally up to you. But I stick with the Bob Ross technique because I know what works, and I know the products, and I know that they are worth what you pay for them. Number one. Number two, they handle so much better, I think, on the canvas than some of the other products. But anyway, I went with some of the other products, and I ended up with such a buildup on my canvas from the other gesso that when I went back with my oil paints, it was holding to my brush. My brush was dragging against it. It was like it lifted up off of the canvas on me. So I always stick with my Bob Ross products because they all flow together so well. So let me get a little bit of gesso on here. And I'll be right back. Don't think that I've run off and I'm not coming back. I'll be right back with you. I've got a broken top on this one gesso and it doesn't want to act right for me. And see, I've got my paper towel still wadded up, and you might want to move it and kind of re-crumple it up. Sometimes it's kind of nice to have different shapes. There we go, that's good enough. And I got just a little daub of my gray gesso. I'm going to go in there, get a little bit on my paper towel, a little bit more than that. And it doesn't take a whole lot. But I'm going to come to the outside here and put in a little bit of the gray. Now we don't want to go in the middle here because if you go in there where your main light source is at, you're going to take away from the brightness of it. And you're going to need that as you put in all of your trees. I know it looks like I'm really not doing much of anything, doesn't it? All right. I think that's probably good enough. Now that I've got that on there, I'm going to give it just a moment because I want it to dry just a little. And that's one of the things with painting with gesso is that when you put your gesso on there, it's one thing to go back with gesso on top of gesso, but when you put oil paint on top of that gesso and it's not dry, it's going to make a swirly, mushy mess, and you're going to have a painting that you're not going to be real happy with. And as Bob used to say, you're going to be mad with me. So I want to make sure I stress that if you try this painting, be sure that you pay attention to whether your gesso is good and dry or not before you put on any oil paint. All right, let's go over and I'm going to get my black gesso now because I'm getting ready to put in some trees. Going to shake it up real good. And I'm going to be using an extremely difficult tool, a foam brush. Now you want to take a good look at your painting here and at your canvas, and you want to decide where do you want your trees and where do you want to position them so that that light is really coming through. When Bob does it, he planned it where this light is going to come right through here through the trees. So you want to take those trees to the outside. And the other thing that we're going to do is once we get those trees in, and I'm afraid of these big old sponges. I like the little ones, but I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to go out on a limb tonight and I'm going to use this one. Get a little bit of paint on there. And when you put in your tree, you want to start from the top. And I think we're going to start right here. Start from the top decide where you want it, and then put your brush down there and come on down with it. And as you come down, you want to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. There. That's not exactly all the way to the top. I want that all the way to the top. There's my first tree. And you know, if you're doing this, you can make as many trees as you would like. You don't have to do it exactly like I do it. And you know, that was part of what Bob, I think he tried to relay to the rest of us. It's your world. So if you want 100 trees in there, that's groovy. If you want 3 trees, that's okay too. I think I'll put me another tree. Yeah, probably about right there. And I'm going to start out easy. And this one, I think I'm going to make him a little bit crooked. And I get bigger as I come down. And you know, trees aren't perfect. But this one right here got a little bit big too quick. So let me add a little bit to him right there. There we go. It looks a little more natural. But there's no such thing as perfect trees in nature. And if you walk around in the woods, you're going to find that out anyway. And a lot of the times when you're deep in the woods and you're walking into the woods and that sun's shining through, there's thousands and thousands of trees and you can hardly see where all the limbs are at. Alright, let's see. Where else do I want another tree? I think I want to put this one a little bit closer to that one and just come right on down and get a little bit bigger as we go down. There we go. So let's go to the other side, and let's put another tree right here. Start at the top, start real small, get bigger, bigger, bigger as you come down. There we go. All right. And I think I'll put another one right here. There we go. That looks pretty good. And we don't want all of these the same length. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come on over here and I'm going to bring this one down just a little bit further. There. Because when we get down here on the bottom, you'll understand why that they're not all the same length. But now that we've got those in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of the grayer gesso and I'm going to put me in a couple of trees right here on the other sides of these black trees, because as you go into the woods and your light source is further away, your trees are going to get a little bit darker. So let's get just a little bit of the gray gesso. And I'm not going to have quite as many of the gray gesso, and forgive me stepping in front of the painting there. I'm going to knock just a little bit of this black gesso off of here so that my gray gesso will show up a little better. Let's see, I've got me a little bit of the gray gesso. Going to go into that gray. And we're going to come right over here. Let's get some on both sides. We'll get it politically correct here. I'm going to come right here and I'm going to put me a gray tree right there, right there, right there, right there, right there. And come on down, come on down, come on down. And about right there, that looks pretty good. That's a pretty big tree. He's got bubbles. And I think we'll put one more right beside him. Maybe a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit more crooked. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good right there. Then we want to come over here and we want to add another one over here on this side. Start at the very top. Come on down, come on down. Let's weave him in just a little bit so he's a little crooked. Like I said, we don't want all these trees, just a bunch of straight trees. And I think I'll put another one right here. This is going to be a little bit small. Yeah, get a little bit bigger as we go down, but there we go. Now, I'm going to put one white one over here and one white one over there. Now, Bob's he had, I think, 2 in there. But because I've spaced these out a little bit further, I don't have quite as much room. So I don't want them too bunched up together. Let me get my white gesso, Bob Ross gesso. I'm going to shake that up real good. Get a little bit on the paper plate here. And I just want to dab in that on both sides. And I think I'm going to be alright. I should have wiped this off. We'll see in a minute, won't we? I might be making a happy accident already, but that'll be alright too. Alright. So let's start up here at the top. I pulled a sneaky on you. I started on the left side this time, didn't I? And there we go. Alright. It worked out okay. Actually, it looks a little bit like bark. And now I'm going to come over on this side, and there's another one. Ta-da! There we go. Alright, let's put this down, and now I'm going to get my script liner. Now this is one of my Bob Ross brushes, and I'm kind of funny about using my Bob Ross brushes with gesso. Now let me tell you a little secret. If you let gesso dry in this brush, it will never be any good for anything else again. It's really hard to get it out of it, and just make sure you keep your little thing of water close by, because you definitely don't want to ruin one of your brushes and have to buy a new one because you didn't get the paint out of it. And I'm also going to wash it with thinner after it dries off a little bit from the water, because I never put water on my brushes. But in this case, it's a little different. And I could stray and I could use a different type of brush, but I want to show you all this the Bob Ross way. Now I'm going to get just a little bit more of my black gesso on my paper plate. And I am going to add just a little bit of water to that. I think I'll set my little brush right here because I'm going to need that again. And I've got one of these really cool, handy dandy little sprayers for my water. But I want to put just a little bit of water on my on my paper plate, because I want this to be thin, a real thin consistency. I'm getting ready to make some tree limbs. And it flows so much better when you put a little bit of water in that black gesso. So let's thin that out. And you can pretty much pick anywhere you would like to go to start these limbs, because this is the longest process of this entire painting. I'm going to throw these boogers up there as quick as I can. So they may not be perfect, but they'll be limbs one way or another. I think I'll just start right about here. And it's good to have a shaky hand, because it makes your limbs look more realistic. I need a little bit more water. A lot of people ask me what made me want to be a Bob Ross instructor. Well, I'll tell you a little story. It was about 2 years ago, and my husband bought me this little paint set. And I had some old canvases in my closet that I had never used. And I never thought that I could paint. I would paint a little stick person and it would run off the canvas away from me. That's how bad my painting skills were. So I kept all those things. And I never did really give a whole lot of look to the paint set that he had bought me. And I guess I should have. because it was a gift and it was sweet. But I didn't realize what type of paint it was. You know, being that I had never tried anything Bob Ross before, I wouldn't have realized that acrylic paint and oil paint were two different things. And unless you've been in the painting world, you probably wouldn't know that. So anyway, I put those up, and I was doing everything in the world but thinking about painting. I was into theater and film and things of that nature. I was into my church. And there came a time in my life that a lot of things were going sort of haywire for me. And I kind of sunk into a depression. It took a lot out of me, and I just felt like there was nothing. I'm older, you know, we all are going to get older. It's good to put a couple of limbs across because it makes it look real. As we get older, I think we start to realize that maybe we got more time behind us than we do in front of us. And although I was acting and I was enjoying that, there was still something missing in my life. You know, the acting was great for me. It you know, made me feel valid and wonderful. And the attention was great. And I do love to act, don't get me wrong. I love theater and I love film. And I've done a little bit of that. But anyway, long story short, I was at a place in my life that I needed something else. And I kind of sunk into this depression where I was feeling useless and that life was pretty much what it was. There wasn't anything else. I was sitting here on the computer. I had not watched a Bob Ross in years. And Bob Ross literally got me through a bad marriage because he was pretty much the only nice guy in my life at that time. And I was watching him, and, you know, I remembered that I had a paint set and some canvases in my closet. And I'm not telling the whole story here because it's tough and it's awful to think that I had come to such a place in my life that I was ready to give up. And I was. But for some reason, Bob's soothing voice and wonderful heart and beautiful art touched me that day. So I decided to get out that paint set and a canvas and just set it up on the table there beside me. I didn't even have an easel that day. I decided to set it up and just see if I had it in me to even try to paint along with him. Well, I got the little paint set out. I got it all on I had a paper plate actually. And I started following along with him. Well, the first thing I did was made some clouds. And I found out that they wouldn't float. And I couldn't understand. And I was getting very upset. And then I looked down in that YouTube and I saw some people commenting that had commented on that. And they started saying something about oil paint, oil paint, oil paint. And I'm like, what? What? Paint is paint is paint is paint, you know. And so I decided that I would take a look at these paints that my husband had given me. They were acrylics. And that is when I found out that acrylics do not blend unless you load them with water. And even when you load them up with water, they still do not flow like oil paints do. Not at all. So I started to give up, and then I didn't, and I'm glad that I didn't. I continued to try to paint along with Bob. And then he got to some mountains, and I had one of those little cute knives, but not like Bob's. So I got that out, and I tried to do the paint breakage with the highlight. And I didn't know how to mix colors either, so my colors were not exactly his colors anyway. So that was one of the first problems with that. And I know this is getting long, but it takes a little bit to get all these limbs in here, so you guys bear with me. Anyway, I tried to do the mountain highlight breakage, and obviously my acrylic paint was definitely not breaking. It was just smearing. And again, I stopped the video. I got up and I went outside and walked around a little bit and walked it off, come back in, and decided to try one more time. And I'm going to get a little bit more paint because I'm getting to a place where I'm going to need some gray instead of black. Well, actually, I can put a little bit of this black on some of this gray. Let me mix this right here that I've got. I've got a little bit on my palette, on my paper plate. Anyway, I came back in and I started again. And we got down to the grasses. And that went pretty good because I had one of the bigger brushes and I was able to put some green paint on that brush. And I was able to pat that grass in, or tap that grass. And I have a wonderful lady that instructed me, and that I went to her classes to be certified. And she teaches you how to make tappy grass. I'm getting too dry here. She teaches you how to make tappy grass, and that was a lifesaver, learning how to do that as well. But anyway, I made the tappy grass, and then it came down to the water reflections, which was very cool indeed. And I enjoyed doing that part. A lot of people have trouble with those water reflections, but that kind of seemed like something that I was able to flow with, you know. It wasn't that hard, but still, you know, I'm like, this painting is going to be horrible because I don't have the right kind of paint, and I'm not an artist, and I guess I got to a place where I'm like, this is just stupid that I'm even trying to do this. But, you know, it took my mind off of feeling useless there for a little while, and that was exactly what I needed. Anyway, by the time that I finished that painting, and believe me, I never expected it to be, you know, to really be a big deal. I stepped back from the painting, and I looked at Bob's, and I looked at mine. And although I did the painting in acrylic, it was absolutely beautiful. For the first time, I had ever painted anything like that before. That's what started the fire. Then I started doing a lot of research on Bob Ross and his products and the things that, you know, you have to learn by experience. I found another wonderful instructor that wasn't too far from where I lived. And I need a little more water. So you really want this gesso to be thin so that it'll flow better off of your brush, because if it doesn't flow, it's harder to make the limbs. Anyway, I found another guy that was an instructor, and I don't want to take those over my black limbs. And I made an appointment to go paint with him. And when I used oil paints for the first time, I was in love. I was hooked. That was it. That's all she wrote. And I went and I did another, I did a workshop in Tennessee with Bob's son. And I came home with a really beautiful picture or painting. And that was another thing that definitely hooked me. The wonderful thing about Bob and the joy of painting is the fact that some people, I think, really miss it. They don't get what Bob's true vision was. And I've even heard things like, well, Bob was... Some of the professional painters don't consider this to be that great of art, I guess. They don't consider it art. I think they just consider it a bunch of blobs of paint. But let me tell you, Bob's vision was people. He loved people. And he knew that if he could encourage folks with his paintings, that he could show folks that he could do, that you could do exactly what he did. And I've even heard him say, and do better than me. Which I don't know. He was pretty amazing, wasn't he? I would never consider myself a better painter, or I don't even know that I would consider myself as being close to having the talent that Bob had. But I do know that with practice, you might surprise yourself. And I think that was part of Bob's vision, was to show people that anybody using his wonderful technique could do this. And you can. You literally can. If I can paint, anybody can paint. You just need a little instruction, a little bit of patience, and a good attitude. And those things actually build. Now, I am probably one of the most impatient human beings in the whole wide world. I've had to learn a lot of patience in my life with living and going through things as an adult. But painting has shown me a whole different understanding when it comes to patience. That's just like I'm impatient with my trees, and I'm trying to hurry it up here, but I don't want to make a mess. And if you go too fast with it, then you'll just have a bunch of weird limbs. So I'm trying not to get in too much of a hurry here. Alright, I want that to blend. I want that to look like it's part of the tree, not sticking outside of the tree. Yeah, we're going to add just a little bit of gray back in there to make that. There we go. We want to hide that back in there so it doesn't look like it's poked out of the tree. Let's see. I could probably put more limbs on there. But for the sake of not losing everyone, I think I'll stop with the limbs. And let me clean out my brush. See, I just got a little thing of water here. I'm going to clean this brush out real good. And I'm probably going to use it again in a minute, so we'll just clean that up right there like that. Oh, goodness. See there? Look at that. It doesn't take long for that acrylic paint to seep up into the furrow of your brush down in here. And if I keep getting it out of there, I'm going to throw it in some thinner. No, I got it. I got it. Yay! Alright, now, let me see. What do I want to put in there next? I'm pretty sure that it's time for my bravery test. Woo! So I want to get a little bit more black gesso. I'm going to shake it up again real good. Get a little bit more black gesso. And I think just because I don't want a big old tree to look funky, I'm going to wipe that water up off of here because I don't want that. I don't want it wet. Not for this. There. That's a little bit better. I am getting ready to make a huge tree. Forgive me for stepping out there in front of the camera. I'm going to load this brush up again. I'm using this big one. I like a little one better. I trust myself better with a small one, but I'm gonna go for broke here. Load up that brush, and let's see, where do I want my, let me look at my old painting. I'm gonna take this big old tree right from here, and I'm gonna go right up to the top. I'm gonna go right here, and I'm gonna bring it on down, and this is gonna be a big old tree. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's big enough. Maybe. I think so. Now, I want to put a limb on this one as well. So let's come up here and don't make your limb too big because you want it to look normal. There we go. There. That looks pretty good to me. And I think that maybe, maybe we'll put another limb over here. I got a little bit more paint, and I think I'll come from right here, come down, and there we go. He looks a little snaky, don't he? That one limb looks a little bit snaky, but that's okay. That's okay. And I think because I want that to be a little bit bigger trunk, I'm going to bring that down a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, I kind of like that. It doesn't look exactly like Bob's, but it looks pretty good. And I think I'm going to put this back down here. I'm going to find my liner brush again. It almost got away from me. Get me a little bit more black gesso. And I want to I'm going to get me a little bit more water now because I want to thin this paint back down some more. Not too much though. Like I say, you don't want it dripping off the plate. But I want to create some limbs coming off of this big guy. So I'm going to roll this around in my water. I'm going to go over here and get some of this black gesso. I'm going to roll it around here, get it right on the end of the brush. Let's see, where do we want, let me look at my picture. I want to put some bigger limbs up here off of this guy. And I'm spinning that brush a little bit as I'm pulling it. I'm spinning it to try to make a point where it comes and it looks more natural. Let's see, let's go right here and throw another limb off of here. We'll just crook it around some. This one, we're going to put one right here too. I like doing tree limbs. And if I wasn't in a hurry, it would probably look a little bit better, but that's okay. few more here. Let's see, where'd my water go? There we go. Want it to move. We want it to move smoothly onto the canvas. There we go. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time putting a whole lot more on here. Because like I said, I don't want to lose you guys. And you know what? I'm going to take this limb across there just like that. Because in nature, those tree limbs bend backwards and forwards and all over the place, don't they? Alright. Maybe got one right here coming off. Maybe another big limb right here. There. Let me step back. And a lot of the times, if you'll step back and you'll look at your painting, you can see things a whole lot better. Get a better perspective of what it looks like. Because when you're standing on top of it, it's kind of hard to see. So I'm going to roll this around here and get me a little bit more of my black gesso. And now I'm a little bit more of a limb over here. And you can make, like I said, you can make 1,000 limbs coming off of this. Or you can just have a couple. It just depends on how long you want to stand here and make limbs. Now I will admit, my other painting had a lot more limbs than this one. Let's see there. How's that look? That looks pretty good. I do want to move that paint just a little bit because I don't want a bunch of wet paint when I go to do any more of the limbs. Let's see there. That's probably good enough. What do y'all think? You think it's good enough? I think it's good enough, probably. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. So let me wash out my brush real quick. Like I said, I don't want that gesso drying in my little liner brush for anything in this world, because it will ruin it. Paper towels are your friend if you are a painter. And you'll find that a lot of the instructors will use up rolls and rolls and rolls of paper towels to try to keep you from having to handle so much thinner, which is a good idea because you don't want to be breathing that stuff constantly. All right, I've got that in there, and now what I'm going to do is I am getting ready to make some little, you know what I'm going to do first? I am going to do what I do a lot of the time. See that big blob of gesso? I'm going to put it back in a bottle real quick. Because when I don't use it, I try not to throw anything away if I can help it. And let me see if I can find my little knife that I do that with. Let's see here. There it is. You guys bear with me. And I'm going to slip that paint right back in the bottle here. And it also helps me clear a little spot on my palette too. Or my paper plate. I'm used to saying palette because I'm used to painting on my palette more than I am on a paper plate. And you don't want to put oil paint on a paper plate anyway. So I'm going to wipe this paper plate off a little. Get some of this acrylic off of here. This black and this gray. Or I guess I could stop being such a cheapo and get another paper plate. But it's alright. You guys bear with me. There. Alright, I'm going to shake up this gesso a little bit. I'm going to use the white gesso this time. And guys, this is more of a demo. This is kind of a trial for me as well. I'm learning a lot about doing demos and recordings and stuff like that, because being a CRI now, I want to get the word out. I want people to see how wonderful the joy of painting really is, and I want to be a great big part of that. I want to give other people this wonderful thing that I have found. It has changed my life dramatically. And while I was telling you that story, I didn't tell you everything, but painting literally the Bob Ross style and following Bob literally changed my life. Saved my life, so to speak, because I had just about given up. Just about given up on life. And life is way too precious to give up on. Alright, now I'm getting ready to do something that is not what Bob did. He used this to make his foliage down and around under his trees. I'm going to use it to make some of the foliage, but not all of the foliage. I'm going to be using a sponge. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of this white gesso on here. And it's going to look like I'm making a mess. And I'm going to put in some foliage all around these two areas right here. And what I want to do is I'm going to shape it to look like big leaves. Let's see. How do I want to go about doing this? And this is sort of a real easy way to do this painting fast. It just depends on how much you want to put into it. Now he also used some dark colors, some grayer colors down closer to the bottom when he did this. So I'm going to get a little bit of that gray as well. Go back with a little bit of white. I'm going to spread this out. And see, these trees also, some of them look like they're setting back farther, some of them look like they're setting closer to you. Now that I've got that in there, I want to come back in with my my little sponge, and I'm going to give this more of a leafy look. And I did not do this on my other one that I did, and I wished I had, because I love the look that the sponge gives. It really gives more of a foliage kind of look. Okay. Come back in with just a little bit of the gray. Now that's creating a texture there. And in Bob's, his is a little bit different than what I've got going here, because he used just the sponge. I mean, just the the foam brush, if I can get it out. It is late, folks. It's very late. I'm getting a little bit more paint. Getting just a little bit more paint here. I want to put a little bit more of the white gesso in here. And tomorrow, when I do the rest, you'll see why I put some extra white gesso in here. but I really like the effect that the sponge makes. Alrighty, now I am going to go back to using this because I'm going to put like a little path coming out. I'm going to put just a little bit of gesso on here, the black. And I think my path is going to start, let me look at mine, it's probably going to start somewhere right in there. And the one thing that I always try to remember is that when I'm walking on a path, it's straight. If I turn this and I start going like that, it's like I'm falling downhill. And I had another really wonderful instructor share something with me one time when she was looking at my pictures. Love her a lot. We're still really good friends. She said, Lisa, she said, you're going to fall off your path if you don't straighten it out. So as I go along here, I'm going to get a little bit wider, and my path is going to come right along over here and go off of the page, so to speak, off of the canvas. But see, I'm keeping those strokes up high. And I'm keeping them straight across. And I'm going to use a little bit of that gray in there to somewhat highlight it just a little bit. Not much. Now, once I get that in there, I'm going to come back with my sponge. Let's set this down so I don't drop it. And I think I am going to put in some more of the white bushy foliage that I was doing with my white gesso. Let's see here. And we're going to come right in here where that pathway is coming around, kind of crooked. And see these little pieces of the gesso that's kind of popped up. That is going to be fabulous when I put the oil paint to it. The texture makes it look real. You want to keep that texture. And when you're painting, like I said, this is not really a tutorial, but I'm giving some little tips here and there as I go, along with some stories to try to keep your mind busy so you don't get too bored waiting on me. You want to keep your paints going off your canvas, because that gives the person that is looking at it the idea that it continues on. You don't want to just cut it off so it's just kind of, stuck there. But I'm going to take just a little bit more of this and make me a little more texture up in here. And again, this is Bob Ross's Golden Rays of Sunshine with changes. The instructor that taught me did a lot of those with the changes. And I want to make sure that folks understand that that's what I've done here, because I don't want them to think that I'm presenting a Bob Ross exactly the way that he did it. Now see, I'm bringing this sponge in here to work that pathway right in, because you want that path kind of set back and set down in that foliage. There we go. Awesome. And let's see, what else do I want to do here? And folks, understand that I am looking at notes because I don't have this stuff memorized yet. And no matter where you started or how long you have painted, it is a process. It takes a while. And I'm learning some other things about myself as well too, is that it's not always easy to fill that dead space when you're trying to paint something. But I want to keep my viewers busy while they're waiting on me to get through this. Now I'm putting a little bit more texture in because when I do the rest of it, I want this to really pop for me. There we go. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm going to carry that on down just a little bit more. And I think I'm going to kind of leave that alone here in just a second. Put a little bit more down here. And I don't want to make that too straight because it won't look natural if it's too straight. But there we go. Let's see here. All right. And for now, that's all I'm going to do. So if you want to see the rest of this, you will have to watch my next painting tomorrow when I have time to come back and finish it off. But the other reason, I don't want to take a hairdryer and dry this. I want to let it dry overnight so that it's good and dry. It's not tacky to the touch. And tomorrow will be when you see the magic happen when I add the oil paints to this. It will really make things pop. It will change it. It will make it, well, this looks lifelike. If you get back from it, it looks even more beautiful. But once I put the oil paint in there and I get my sunlight and it's coming through the trees, it just turns into a fantasy world. And I can do it ever how I want to because it's my world. Well, folks, I'm going to say good night for now. And I hope you guys will have sweet dreams, happy painting, and God bless.